And gumball. This is it. Let's see what happens here. Waiting for talking Sith. Alright, I'm gonna cite your game. Can you still hear me, Chaz?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Okay.
See what happens. Play. Play. Play.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we're on the air. We're coming at you live over the airwaves.
Cool. I just gotta get us going to Facebook and then we'll be... Alright, so let's get started, because it sounds like my little homie just woke up, so my timing is... So, did you get a chance to dive into those deleted scenes at all?
Yeah, you're coming through pretty quiet for some reason. Yeah, I did. I watched all the deleted scenes. I have not had a chance to watch any of the featurettes or mini documentaries or the Rian Johnson commentary or anything like that. But I did watch all 12 deleted scenes.
Nice. Can you hear me any better at all? I'm sorry.
I can, but I have my echo again.
Okay, no problem.
So
Try to
that's okay, baby.
Yeah. So, did you get a chance? You said you did get a chance to check all that stuff out. Did you get a chance to check out? What's it called? Did you say you watched it with the commentary? Or you didn't watch
No,
it
I
with the
did not.
commentary?
I watched all 12 deleted scenes, but I haven't gotten to see any of the featurettes or commentaries. So I haven't watched the movie again, actually, and I haven't watched the little mini featurettes they have, because there's like an hour and a half documentary thing, I think, which I haven't gotten to take a look at yet. But I plan on watching them all before next week's episode. I just haven't had any time.
Yeah, but I do want to take time to eventually check those out myself. Because from what I saw, like what you posted on the Talking Sith website or Facebook page, when it showed like him and Luke or
Mark Hamill with
Mark
R2.
Hamill.
That looked heavy, and then
him
seeing Frank Oz looked really cool too. So
that
both
part
of
at
those
the end
look
there of that clip where Mark Hamill was like on the ground, just like so
Yeah,
like,
super
overcome with
emotional.
emotion.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, like I didn't realize. I mean,
Yeah, it was heavy.
Why I didn't realize it, but like I didn't realize how much. I'm so used to Mark Hamill and him as a voice actor. When it comes to like seeing him in regular, film, that I never really thought about his process as an actor. You know what I mean? Like, or what he does to like get himself in the moment and things like that. Because I'm so used to, if I do see him like doing that or kind of going through that process, I'm used to seeing it. What it would look like when he's in the booth, when he's like doing the voiceover.
Right.
So it's just, it was really interesting, I think, to see more than anything, seeing it from that stand, seeing Mark Hamill, like, kind of, showing us his acting chops, really. That was,
there's not much that he's, like, legitimately in live action where he's, like, a story-driven character, where he's not just there as a cameo. Like, he's in Jay and Silent Bob, but he's kind of just a cameo. And he's in Kingsman, but he's kind of just a cameo. Like, there's not much where he drives the story forward as an on-screen actor, like someone like Harrison Ford does. So I think that, other than Luke, obviously, so I think that that makes a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it was interesting because as far as seeing his him and Ryan Johnson's creative differences kind of being worked out in real time,
Yeah.
was interesting to see that.
Yeah, it's cool seeing that, because honestly, that's not something Disney generally does. They don't really.
Yeah, I thought that myself too. Like,
talk about that kind of thing. If there is a difference in opinion, they usually put the kibosh on that pretty quickly. So I think it was pretty cool that they acknowledged that obviously where Luke went in the storyline is not where most people. Well, it's not where anyone expected, I think, but it's also not where most people were most comfortable with. And I mean, we talked about that last week, but even down to the people in the movie itself. And I really thought that Mark Hamill's view on it was refreshing. Ryan Johnson obviously could have just said do it, you know what I mean, because it's my movie. But obviously you got to respect Mark Hamill, and I think that Mark Hamill's stepping back and saying, look, I'm not the character. I have to recognize that I just exist in this universe and for this universe. So even though I, as a fan or as a Luke Skywalker, aficionado, don't particularly like it necessarily all the way, it's my job to make it the best representation of what the script has, as I can possibly do. And that's a really, professional, mature way of looking at it. And I mean, that sounds patronizing, but it really is not something you would see a lot of big name Hollywood actors do nowadays. And
right.
And to see him sort of have that respect for Ryan Johnson and for the fact that Star Wars is bigger than himself or Harrison or any one of them is pretty refreshing and really cool. And obviously just super illustrative of who Mark Hamill is as a person. Like, he couldn't have done it any other way just because of his personality. But it's still nice to see.
Yeah, I agree. I think my like.
I think I lost you. Can you hear me? We might have lost Chaz, but I will talk about the deleted scenes. So there were 12 deleted scenes. Some of them were just little expansions on things that already happened. Like, there was an extended...
Hey, sorry about that.
I thought we lost you.
No, I'm still here. I just had an issue with my microphone. I had to just switch around some settings real quick. So yeah, I think that what really I found the most interesting about that deleted scene, other than seeing him kind of show us like that side of him as an actor, and like I said, seeing him interact with Ryan Johnson, it's like you said, we really didn't have to see that. Disney had no need to show us.
Yeah, absolutely.
They could have just shown us like Ryan Johnson being like, these are why I made these decisions, and I thought these decisions were good, and I really enjoyed making the movie. And they could have cut out all the parts where Mark Hamill said like, oh, I didn't really agree. Like, they didn't have to show us that. They could have just shown us all the fluffy,
he was being like pretty transparent
stuff.
Too. He was like, I did not like this, and that's like I said, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think, and like you said, I think it shows to his, and yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say, is that I think it really shows to his character as a person, not even just as, an actor, but him as who he is as a human being, to put aside, he even says, like, this isn't my Luke, this belongs to
it's bigger than me.
Everyone else. It's bigger than myself, and to be able to do that, was pretty incredible, because like even with, like you said, Harrison Ford, when he was going to come back to Star Wars, his big thing was I couldn't see Han Solo, his part, going any other way than the way it did, because I think if it did, Harrison Ford would have been like, no, I'm not going to come back. Like, if they were like, listen, we're going to keep you alive and we're going to put you through 3 more movies, Harrison Ford would have been like, no. Like, that's, no. Like, Han Solo needs to die. Like, this is how it needs to happen as far as the character development goes. I don't think Harrison Ford would have been as on board with um, the changes, or not changes they made, but the way that they handled the character. Whereas, like I said, Mark Hamill, he was like, he almost remained Jedi-like in that way, where he was, allowed this character to be treated how it needed to be treated for the sake of Ryan Johnson's and not the story that maybe he wanted to tell. So I thought that was interesting, and like I said, being one of the fans of Star Wars who wasn't the biggest fan of The Last Jedi, seeing those not deleted scenes, but those behind the scene moments were really nice, because it was a little bit of a different perspective on. It was nice to see Mark Hamill feeling some of the same things I felt, but it was almost like your like uncle being like, "Oh, it's all right, man. Like, no worries. Like, everything's gonna be okay." Like, it was almost like that warm feeling of like, I also had issues with how this panned out, but here's the reason why it's okay. So it was almost like almost comforting listening to Mark Hamill talk about why, what the role meant to him and how it kind of, how he played it, and he did a great job. I did happen to see the scene where he was having like some fun in an X-wing. It was on, like, I saw it posted on Facebook or something like that. It was like a really short clip, but it was Mark Hamill like goofing off inside an X-wing.
Oh, I thought you meant like a deleted scene about Luke having fun in an X-wing. I was like, that is not a thing.
No. It's a behind the scenes little moment, not deleted scene. I'm sorry. Yeah, a little behind the scenes moment. Mark Hamill's on set and he's like just goofing off behind the X-wing and stuff like that. And it's like, things like that are why I love watching that behind the scenes footage and things like that, because it's
that sort of thing was needed for Mark Hamill. For sure.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the stuff I like seeing about the original trilogy, when we see like the pictures of them just behind the set, out, like just being themselves, like those pictures of them in the hotel just like goofing off, and seeing like Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, though they seem like such different people, they're great friends, they're fantastic friends, and that the whole trilogy, I'll have to say that, like, out of all eras of Star Wars, the three best companions are Luke, Leia, and Han.
Oh yeah, obviously,
that's hands down. I mean, obviously, the prequels are tough because
in any franchise.
Oh yeah, in any franchise, for sure. But like, in the prequels, we didn't really get that with ObiWan and Anakin. Like, we had those moments, but it never felt anywhere close to. And then in the newer ones, I feel like the closest we came was Rey and Finn. And I thought Rey, Finn, and Poe from The Force Awakens were going to be this whole new thing, and
I
it felt like it. They did a really good job
in the third one, because you got to remember, in Empire, Luke, Han, and Leia aren't together for the majority of the movie too, so.
Right, but I think it's that desire that Luke has to get back to,
like Finn with
Han
Rey.
and Leia. Yeah, like Finn with Rey, exactly. Like, that desire he has is really like such a core part of his character development. Is being, that desire to go back to his friends, especially, being like, this all-powerful whatever, and having like this whole thing, and like learning all this stuff about himself, and his only goal is, I want to make sure my friends are okay. It's like, dude, you just realize you could like basically like move things through time and space with your mind.
Right. Yeah, you just have to think about it.
He's concerned about, his buddies. So that's such a big part of not just his storyline, but like a running theme behind Star Wars. So I was really excited to see stuff like that. But other Star Wars news we have. What was I thinking?
We did have Mark Hamill in some kind of interview. He was talking about George Lucas's original ideas for 7, 8, 9, which like Lucas had like a framework of a sequel trilogy written, which I don't know if a lot of people know.
I didn't hear about this.
And they asked him about, Luke's death and how Lucas would have felt about it, and he said, actually, like, Lucas had Luke dying as well, but he had him dying at the end of 9.
Okay.
And obviously in a little bit of a different way, but he had him training Leia and then and then dying. Really, it seems similar to like the old extended universe, like where Luke trains Leia. So that would have been interesting to have seen. But yeah, so anyone who's saying Lucas never would have killed Luke is incorrect.
Yeah, that's actually incredibly interesting because I always thought that Luke was like George Lucas's like just like son.
Right.
Like that's always kind of like how I like put them together. And like I actually, now that I think about it, I never put too much thought into what would George Lucas have done with these new movies. Because I genuinely thought, like, when I saw interviews with him and things like that, he seemed done. He really genuinely seemed like, I'm done with Star Wars. Like,
I think he was done because of how terrible people are to him, though. Like, I don't think that he's ever creatively removed from this entire universe that he created. Like, that's not something you can just turn off in your brain, to me. So I think that, he's always got a lot of emotional, personal investment.
I would love to see them bring him on as like a.
Yeah, they won't.
I don't know, like even just as like a consultant for the new like TV series that's in the works.
They won't. They when they bought it from him, he removed like any chance at creative input. So.
Did he?
He's toast, yeah.
But, like, once again, it didn't seem like he really was upset with that, because I do remember the interview he gave, and he straight up called Disney white slavers. Like,
right.
He wasn't, like, he seemed like the whole thing was kind of like, I have to do this because I'm ready to be retired, and I'm ready to be done, and
I think really that at some point, when someone offers you however many zeros were in that offer, there's not much you can say no to anymore. But...
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, he did have him dying in his original ideas for what a sequel trilogy would be. So anyone who says that Luke wouldn't have died in a Lucas movie is wrong. And then also, the deleted scenes. So there were 12 deleted scenes. Some of them were like just extended versions of scenes that were in the movie. So like, for example, the Canto Bight escape where they're riding around on those things. I don't remember what they're called. The dog horse things.
Right.
There was a super long escape scene from that, and then there's there were a few like whatever the Phasma scene that we posted to the Talking Sith Facebook, that was in there. Obviously, there was a scene. There's the scene with Tom Hardy as a stormtrooper, where he recognizes Finn on an elevator on the Dreadnought. But that scene has also been posted to our Facebook previous to the Blu-ray release. So the only scene that I can think of that was particularly new was there was a scene set on Ahch-To where Luke and Rey are training. There was a scene that showed Luke mourning Han. Where
that was it.
It was right after Rey says, Han's dead or whatever, and she and Chewie are sitting outside, and Luke goes inside his little hut thing. It shows him go in his hut and sort of sit there and cry. It doesn't really have much, but there was one scene that I thought was interesting. That was Luke and Rey training, and it's nighttime, and there's like boats coming to the island from one of the other islands, and Rey says, "Who is that?" And Luke says that it's raiders that come, once every other month or so, and they come and they pillage and raid the town of those little turtle people, and Rey was like, "All right, well we have to go stop them." And Luke says, "No, that's not what we do. That's not what a Jedi would do. A Jedi would sit here and watch. It's not a Jedi's job to interfere." And I thought that was like an interesting thing to say, because it's not exactly the starry-eyed Luke that we all know. And then
that's really interesting.
So I thought that was compelling. And then Rey lights her lightsaber and takes off running towards the town. She's like, I got to do something. Like, that's not what I'm going to do. So she goes running towards the town, and Luke's like, wait, don't go. And she like busts down the front gate, and she's like, ah! And it turns out it's just a party. Like, there's the people coming on the boats are just another tribe that come every once in a while to have like a big feast and dance.
So Luke was
stuff.
just messing with her?
Right, so Luke was kind of trolling her. Which, then I thought that sort of ruined the scene. I was like, I'm glad that wasn't in the movie, because that's not really that cool. You know what I mean? Like, Luke wouldn't really do that. And then I thought, well, maybe Yoda would do that. Like, if there was something similar on Dagobah, Yoda would have done that to Luke. And
for sure.
So I thought that was interesting. And then, so the scene goes on, and Luke comes up, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And Luke's like, "Oh man, I was gonna stop you, but you just took off so fast, and I can't believe that you ran like that." And Rey gets like super emotional. She's like, "This is why, like, this is not what the galaxy needs. The galaxy needs, I came here because people are dying, just like you told me these people are about to die."
Yeah, he's like,
and Luke's like, "This is why I'm not going to help you, because you ran in there like that. That's what you need. That's what the galaxy needs, is someone who's going to run in there like that. And that's not what a Jedi does. So that's why I can't help you." So it went from interesting, and I thought it was going to be an actual like badass fight scene. It went from interesting to like kind of disappointing, but then I thought it was whatever. And then it got really interesting again. So I highly recommend that scene. I'm kind of a little bummed that they cut it, because it doesn't really like go into his crotchetiness or anything like that, but it does show why, there is an actual dispute between Rey and Luke that didn't exist between Luke and other people. Like, Luke and Yoda didn't really have a disagreement of the souls, you know what I mean? Luke just needed to get out of there because he felt like he had to help his friends, and Yoda was like, "You don't understand, I shouldn't even be training you anyway. If you leave, you're done." And that was that. But they didn't have like a we would be on different sides if we were in a war type situation, and that's kind of what it felt like when Luke was talking to Rey in that scene. And that was right before Rey left, and Luke did his whole
and it seems like it seems like now, after all this time, there's a shift in. I mean, obviously that's a big part of the theme with Star Wars: Last Jedi, but it seems like now there's this shift towards, Jedi not really be like you said. There's this difference, this fundamental like differences in opinions and ideals between Rey and Luke. That wasn't really the case with Yoda and Luke. He just was like you said, like, "Hey, listen, if you need to go ahead, but I'm not."
Right. I think it shows that like Rey is kind of further along as a person than Luke was. Like, I don't think that she's further along, obviously, as a Force user or as a soldier or something. But I do think that she had like a steadfastness and an opinion that Luke didn't have. Luke was like malleable. Luke was like willing to take whatever you said and make that his ideal. Whereas Rey has a set of ideals. She has to have Luke help her achieve, a means to an end. And when he's not willing or able to help her in the way that she thinks is appropriate, she sort of gives up on it. And
she reminds me of Anakin. Sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
she's much more brash than Luke is.
Yeah, she reminds me of the Anakin from like the Clone Wars, where she has that heroic side to her. Because if she was a Padawan, she would have been a not troubling Padawan, but she would have been a lot like Ahsoka Tano. She would have been a lot like, but Master, like, these people are whatever, and we need to go help them, and blah, 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 and her whatever was like, "Listen, I know we do, but we have a job. This is the Jedi way. This is how we're going to do it." And I think can totally see her being the Jedi, like, "Nope, I need to help them. I'm going to go do this."
Right. I think that Rey and Anakin both ask why to questions that Jedi don't generally ask why to. So, like, you have someone, like a Padawan is just like, "Yes, Master, no, Master." Like, ObiWan is the, like, ideal cookie-cutter Padawan. Yeah. And he's a little bit sassy to Qui-Gon, but Qui-Gon, is always right, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And
and that's the thing, is that he's sassy to Qui-Gon, but he never disobeys him outright.
Right.
Like, he never just doesn't do what he said. I mean, even to the point where he trains this kid that he never really wanted to train in the first place.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Yeah, I think that that's the difference. And then someone like Anakin, not only, I mean, the thing about Anakin and Rey are that as much as they would ask why or you know, be straight up argumentative in some cases, they're totally selfless characters. Like, Rey would for stupid reasons sacrifice life and limb and run out there, you know, without any chance of survival just to save a couple people. And I think that Anakin probably would do the same thing and just get lucky.
Oh yeah.
And Luke would too, to an extent, but Luke would do it out of loyalty to friends, not out of like random kindness to strangers. So I think that I think that shows, like you said, that's a great point, the similarities between Rey and Anakin, but also the dissimilarities between Rey and Luke, in that it isn't necessarily a question of totally right versus totally wrong. That's one of the cool things about Star Wars, is that it's somewhere in the middle. There's gray areas, and it's expected that it's going to be like real life, and some people are going to be on one side of that argument, and others are going to be on the other. Like, even within the ranks of the rebels, like, obviously Empire bad, Rebels good. If you disagree with that, then you're probably a bad person. But you can't you can like Luke and dislike Rey, or you can like Rey and dislike Luke, and as a result have an opinion about the movies that changes. And I think that's kind of really cool, because if anything, it shows that the movie's doing something really well, because it has an emotional response that it elicits from you.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like you said, that's the greatest thing about Star Wars. It is those gray areas, and is like, that's why I've always been the type of student who I'm okay with math, but I gravitate towards more things like English and things like that, because I love to be able to like listen to like a Robert Frost poem or whatever, and somebody else can get a completely different meaning than I did, but neither one of us is wrong. Right. It's just we got different things. And so that's what I love about Star Wars, is you can watch it and you're not wrong about how you feel about it. You just don't feel the same way as somebody else feels about it. Right. And but that doesn't make you wrong, because like, even with like the Empire versus the Rebels, like, to me the Rebels were like this group of like terrorists who were trying to disrupt this order that made sense. You know, the world was at war, this whole galaxy was at war, the Empire crushed that, brought it all under one thing, so that way it stopped, and this ragtag group of bunch of nonsensers came in and started messing stuff up, you know? So it all depends on...
the Empire was like slavers and
exactly, except the Empire was really actually very terrible. I'm leaving out major details for my own edification. But it's like, you know, that's the thing. It's like, Star Wars is one of those things where it's like, you know, I'll have a discussion with a buddy of mine named Jake, and like I said, you know, me and him are both big Empire enthusiasts, so we'll come up with any way we can possibly make the Empire right, you know, like, and it's great. So it's just, you know, and I think that's also the other thing where, like you said, the similarities between characters aren't necessarily where you always think that they're going to be. So Rey, I would say, is extremely similar to Anakin in the way that they do things. And once again,
she's almost more similar to Anakin than Kylo is. Which,
well, that's what I was going to say, is that Kylo, actually, his similarities start to drift away from Anakin the more you start to realize how much Rey is actually more like Anakin. Because, like, the thing is that Anakin, he did everything that he did out of a sense of, you know, loyalty to his friends and all that. Not a sense of... Rivers is so funny. He did it out of a sense of loyalty to his buddies and his pals and his friends and all that, whereas Kylo is doing it for power.
Yeah, he's a pure anarchist.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing it because he knows that he's
there's not many people in the franchise that are similar to Kylo, so that's kind of cool.
Which is why
I think
really
it might
like
be
Kylo.
more evidence that they're siblings. I hadn't really thought of it until now, but she could have a little bit of Anakin in her, like.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's, if anything, I think it draws similarities to the. I think it just pulls to the story of Darth Vader and how powerful it is. Like, it shows just how on this line Anakin actually was.
That's what I was
like,
gonna say. Anakin is
like,
so unique a character that,
yeah.
that anyone who's similar to him at all that's a really distinctive trait in them. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
like Rey's almost a hybrid in personality wise between Rey between Anakin and Padme, like almost perfectly.
Yeah.
Where
yeah,
Padme is like this idealist and is needing to fight a fight, but needs to fight the fight by the rules. And Anakin is willing to give up anything for anything but himself, basically. And Rey's kind of both. Rey has this this fight that she's fighting, and she is an important player in that fight, and she doesn't know what maybe her place is. But at the same time, she's willing to go all out for some random kid. So I think
exactly that's the selflessness.
Right.
Like,
so which
is selfless.
Both Anakin or Padme, I honestly, she's probably more like both of them combined than either Luke or Leia is, or
I was gonna say Leia is like very like Leia is.
She's as close as it gets.
Yeah, Leia is as close as it gets, but Leia isn't like she's not. I would say that her similarities to Anakin end very quickly. Like she is her mother incarnate. Like
she's just hot-headed like Anakin. That's about it.
Exactly. She just has her father's, I would say, temper.
Yeah.
But other than that, she's like she's 100% her mom. That general, that ability to walk into a room and just command the room instantly. Just to know, like, if you just walk around, like Leia had that attitude where you knew she was in charge. No one had to tell you that Leia was in charge.
Absolutely, yeah, you looked around.
You just knew that, all right, this lady's clearly running things. And, like, Padme was very much like that. Like, a lot of people don't realize Padme started out, and just like Leia did, because Leia started out in politics very young.
Right.
And so did Padme. Padme was like, what? She was the queen at, like...
Yeah, she was the queen
16,
when she was 14.
17?
14.
Yeah, she was super young.
Yeah.
So you have to think, like, that means she was actually campaigning before she hit 14.
Oh,
so
absolutely,
this girl might have been campaigning from the time she was, like, 12. You know
I remember the
so
Phantom Menace books. It talked about, like, her political opponents and how, like, she, competed with them in the political realm. And, they're 4 or 5 times her age.
Exactly.
It is. It's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
I will say that, out of Luke and Leia, I do think that Leia is more similar to Anakin than Luke is. Because Luke, the only thing brash about Luke is his loyalty to his friends. And other than that, he's kind of just, he wants to do right. He has like an idea of what his story should look like, and so he wants it to be that way. But he doesn't actually write that story, if that makes any sense, until much
I feel
later.
like Luke's whole story is to be the redemption story of his father.
Right,
so, like,
exactly.
He doesn't really resemble
That's his
Anakin
destiny.
because his whole purpose is to be the opposite. Because like that's the whole balance thing.
Right.
The whole
Which is why
thing.
I think that Leia resembling Anakin, if anything, at least more than Luke does, is so interesting because we already know how dissimilar everyone else is to Anakin because of his just rare qualities as a character. And then Rey's similarities to both Anakin in some ways, and then Leia in other ways, I think just go to show her lineage. I'm even more convinced now than I was before.
I think Leia is a more complex character than a lot of people give her credit for.
Oh yeah,
because
most of the females in Star Wars are.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I think what people think is like, oh, she's the general princess who like whatever, who plays like the damsel in distress but not really role. But that's not Leia. That's like distilling what she is by so much. Like she really is such a complex character. And like you said, once you get into the lore of Star Wars and who her parents are and like what their motivations were, it really starts to bring this character into a whole new light of, she was a politician who was trying to she was aware of the fact that Bail Organa and whatever weren't her parents, and it was a very interesting. She's great. Like you said, I think what's more interesting is that the fact that Anakin is such a complex and difficult character. The fact that you can have other characters, it speaks to those characters as you know, how in depth they are, because to be able to draw the things from his character is such an amazing thing. And like I said, Rey, the more I think about it and the more we talk about it, it's funny that I didn't start to put, especially as big of a fan of Anakin as I am, I never started to put those pieces together. I'm like, you know, Rey really is very similar to this character, especially like, and the only really big difference is Anakin knows who one of his parents are, right? So he knows who his mom is, and I think that's like the biggest difference is Rey never knows. So she like that loss is there, and she feels it, but not in the same way where Anakin literally loses something that was his. Like, he had something, and his biggest driving factor was, I have this one connection. Rey is trying to find that connection and establish that connection. Anakin already had it, and it was taken from him. So I think you have this difference between characters where Anakin could have wound up like Rey, where she just really doesn't seem like she has a bad bone in her body, where it seems like at the end of the day, every choice she makes, she really feels like she's making a choice that's leading to the right thing. Even if it's not a choice, it seems like at the end of the day, she's always making her choices because she thinks it's going to wind up good. You know, you just see this line where Anakin could have basically been Rey, but his mom was taken from him, not to mention he just, you know, their upbringing, things like that. But it is super interesting. I think that it's definitely something worth looking more into, like as far as researching goes and things like that, because I really like that idea of Rey.
Yeah, you got to watch that
scene,
because that scene is really cool.
Yeah, I still don't know if I'm sold on them being siblings, but I will take that she is definitely a lot like Anakin. But yeah, so the one thing we didn't get to talk about last week that I wanted to make sure we did have time to talk about were those. So when Battlefront 4 was coming out, we had all those what are they called? Alternate costumes and stuff like that. The concept art from and so. I did get a chance to finally look at all that stuff, and it's really freaking cool. Yeah. It's really cool. I was really excited about it. So I'm on a whatever now, and there's 15 different things. So the first one, and if you guys didn't have a chance to check it out, it is posted up on our Facebook page. So go there, scroll through, you'll be able to find these pictures, and you'll be able to check them out. But the first one is a dark ObiWan. So I'm reading right off of what it says here. But it says, what's interesting about this alteration in ObiWan's story arc is that he technically should have gone dark in Revenge of the Sith. Think about it. ObiWan witnessed his own apprentice turn to the dark side, and the cause he fought for his entire life was all but dismantled. I love this. I absolutely love the idea of Obi-Wan kind of losing it after the Jedi Order falls apart. And
yeah, I think if it was anyone but Obi-Wan, that's exactly what would have happened. If it was like Ki-Adi-Mundi or Plo Koon somebody, then they're toast. But I think because Obi-Wan, like you said a couple minutes ago, he's the perfect Jedi. Like, not only in how he acts, but literally down to his core as a person, the only person who could have gone through that would have been him. Like, even Qui-Gon might have wavered in that situation.
Oh, Qui-Gon definitely would have wavered.
I think it's really specific to Obi-Wan.
If you look at Qui-Gon Jinn, he was a great Jedi in the sense of, like, that mystical, like, whatever, and what I kind of think, like, how we think of a Jedi. But if you think of him, like, he went against the Jedi Order. He specifically, like, did stuff that, like, he was training Obi-Wan in a way that was a little bit more unorthodox than the way that you usually get trained. Like, Qui-Gon Jinn's awesome, but I don't know if he was necessarily, like, the perfect Jedi. I think he definitely had some stuff with him. But the next one is...
his master was Dooku, wasn't it? Like, Dooku... So, I mean, Qui-Gon had exposure to people who didn't
right. His
work
master
out
was
well.
Dooku.
And so, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I think that it's cool to imagine Obi-Wan going a different direction in that way.
And then Yoda was Dooku's master, correct?
Right.
I'm pretty sure,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I'm pretty
I
sure
don't
Yoda
remember.
was Dooku's master.
But,
Because when they fought, the first time they fought, they made reference to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it is, but I do think that out of all the Jedi, the only one who is, like, impossible to turn in that Anakin situation is ObiWan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Yoda, but ObiWan for sure.
He's the only one who's impossible to turn. I think ObiWan is so essential to the Star Wars
and then later Luke.
universe. And then he's just so essential to the Star Wars, not just universe, but just like how Star Wars works in general. Like you need those two pillars. Like so I would say like you have this pillar of this is exactly how a Jedi should be. Like this is the quintessence. Like you have like these offshoots of like Mace and even Yoda to an extent.
Yeah.
Like because Yoda isn't the perfect Jedi, but like you have Obi-Wan who is just he follows the rules and he genuinely believes in the Jedi code and he lives it to his dying day. Like he has his, like you said, he has his moments of sass, but that's it. Like he has his little
right, and that's really just when he's developing as a person too. It's not as prevalent once he's secure in who he is as an adult. Like once Episode 3 hits, he can sass Anakin, but he's like when he's talking to Mace or Yoda or anyone, he's like pure respect. And then even in the New Hope, like he's an old crotchety dude, but he's a knight.
He's a Jedi Knight, exactly. Yeah. He's a knight, 100%. Like he has that chivalry attitude to him, and I feel like that's why they designed, like George Lucas knew what he was doing, 100%. You know what I mean? He had this Jedi Knight of old when we saw him when he was an old graybeard, and then we saw him in the prequels. We really did see Obi-Wan was the quintessential knight character. He was chivalrous. He was
which is why
kind.
his origin story would be weird to me, because if it did have like a love interest, that would just
be
spit
so
in
odd.
the face of
who he
is.
Odd. Because that's just not who he is. Like I would like to see him maybe in a movie where whoever is his supporting role, maybe they had a love interest, and so that could get me invested. But I don't want to see it with Obi-Wan, because like you said, like Obi-Wan he needs to stay Obi-Wan, and there are things that he like would and would not do. Now I understand like Luke changing in this new movies is fine, because that's a whole different thing. Like we don't know certain things about Luke anymore because there's parts that we didn't see. However, with Obi-Wan, we've seen his whole thing pretty much. So if you're going to fill in pieces, you can't fill them in incorrectly, because we know how Obi-Wan would do them. Like whereas Luke, like I said, he changed. We don't know how Luke was going to act after basically we saw him for the last time.
Yeah, he would have to be like 12 if you were going to actually change him, because that's what the books did. I remember the Young Obi-Wan book series. That was awesome. But that would be like, you can't do it otherwise, not without totally throwing it away.
Exactly. And Obi-Wan, like I said, he's been with the Jedi Order since he was a kid. I don't know. I just want to see him stay Obi-Wan, but I would love to see him get in some I would love to see Ewan McGregor fight it out again with that lightsaber. That would be
absolutely.
Amazing. But, so number 14 was Vader. And his costume, I'll try to describe it to you guys. It's got like gold trimming around the chest plate where
the redeemed Vader?
Yeah, and then like the shawl that kind of goes down has a gold trimming in it as well, and then his lightsaber is gold now instead of the black lightsaber, which is, I think, really freaking awesome. I think that's such a great thing. But Battlefront 4 was intended to shift the story's direction with Anakin becoming Darth Vader under different pretenses. He'd get there on his own, but the path changed slightly. In turn, the tech and augmentations that went into Vader's original apparatus would change as well. Knowing that, a revision on Vader's suit makes sense. Keep in mind that the gold-accented version could also be a Vader who has ascended to a more regal position. So, I think both of those ideas are fantastic. To see, oh my gosh, that's my dream come true. An Emperor Vader, like, so for me, it would have been awesome to see Darth Vader throw Palpatine off that thing, but then not die, and then somebody has to take over the galaxy, but he's different, right? He's redeemed now because he found the love of his kids again. So now you have this empire that's ruled by Vader and his son Luke, and I mean, that would have been really cool. That would have been a really cool way for things to end up. That would have been awesome. Especially because you had that, it would have been that really cool callback. Obviously, we didn't know back then. He didn't write it back then, so it, it wouldn't have made any sense. It would have been pretty incredible for them to make this connection. But it really been really cool where they had that moment in the prequels where he says, this is my new empire. Right. And then eventually he does take it over as his. But again, there would have been no way that connection could have
Well, the prequels would have had to be completely different.
Yeah, the prequels weren't written yet. So.
Well, they would have had to go like the opposite direction too.
Exactly. So, but yeah, so then the next one, number 13. This one, if you've read any of the extended stuff, then this one isn't too far of a leap. We've kind of seen stuff like it before, but number 13 is Jedi Leia.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, knowing, let's see, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we're in the minority of people who wanted this to happen, but a Jedi Leia should have been introduced. Critics and fanboys will always argue that there was no room for another Jedi in the original trilogy, but there was. Plus, Luke could have accomplished so much more if his sister was by his side during the events of Return of the Jedi. Oh wow, there's a couple things that need, oh man, whoa. That was a lot. Oh, I don't know if I agree with that. I was just trying to read the description of this, but then he said some stuff, or the writer said some stuff where I'm like, I don't know about that, because I don't know. Luke could have accomplished so much more if his sister was by his side during the events of Return of the Jedi. You just took away his
I don't agree with that part of it.
You just took away his entire motivation.
The only thing that that was the only reason he went. Yeah, the only thing that would have changed is that Vader literally would have not taken a fight. He would have been like, "Oh, cool, my kids are here. Like now I'm on their side." Like that's all it would have been. Other than that's stupid. I will say that if it were like the old extended universe and Jedi Leia occurred post Return of the Jedi, that could have been really cool because that worked in the books and it was awesome and it it was really really cool. But to say that she, and it might have even worked for her to have been a Jedi during the original trilogy, but that point about Return of the Jedi doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah. He goes on to say that she might have been able to tip the balance in Luke's favor when he was confronted by the Emperor.
Yeah, well, like I said, Vader literally would have not been an issue. Vader would have turned.
I get it, but at the same time, well, no, I don't get it. Because you're basically taking away...
If he means a physical fight, Luke versus the Emperor, then it would be...
if the favors were tipped in Luke's balance during... Return, then Anakin would have never have been able to redeem himself.
Yeah, Anakin would have just
killing.
Not at all.
The Emperor and bringing balance to the Force.
Yeah, it's silly.
So I don't know. Either way, knowing all of that, Jedi Leia seems like a good idea. Of course, it's possible that Battlefront 4 had a different purpose for making Leia a Jedi. For all we know, the Leia of Battlefront universe took Luke's place as the Jedi hero. That's an interesting theory. Who knows? Who knows? But I would like to see a Jedi Leia just because I love Leia. It would be awesome just to see what she would look like. Number 12, no injury Vader. So this is basically Vader with just a kind of more baggy robe.
Yeah.
And then no helmet. And that's it. So nothing really special there. Other than that. And then
your voice just changed hardcore.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you way better. I just don't understand what happened.
Oh, sorry. So no injury Vader's interesting. Like I said, he just has no helmet. But that doesn't. I mean, he burned up in Mustafar, so right. I don't know how he. I think that was just kind of like an extra skin that you might have been able to get. There's really no story behind that one. Dark Side Leia, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Losing Luke and then losing Obi-Wan in one fell swoop could have crippled Leia's psyche. She already had to come to terms with her adoptive parents' death. Losing the only one family member she had left would have been unbearable. Then finding out her father was Darth Vader, well, it's a pretty safe bet that Leia would have joined up with him. He's her father, after all.
Yeah, no. I think she would have just been super rage mode. Like, I don't know that she would have turned her entire personality around.
I don't think she would have joined. I think she might have turned to the dark side, but joining her father, I don't see here.
Yeah, no, I don't even think she would have turned. I think that it's cool to look at visually, like all these opposites, like Dark Mace or Light Darth Maul, but I don't, like, there's no point in writing a paragraph to try to explain how that could happen in the story. I feel like that, like...
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about it before. I talked about the concept art, like... There's no way Battlefront could do this. It's way too big a sidestep from what Star Wars actually is, and Battlefront's not about that. So
and Battlefront 2 didn't go in that direction. Like if it was a different type of, game. If they would have approached the game differently,
like
then
indie
I
game
could see
or something. Like there's no way that they could put the Star Wars name on it and make a Dark Luke, and a Light Vader, and you know what I mean? Like it's cool to look at visually because they're really neat pictures, but that's about it.
Yeah, so some of the other really cool ones, before we go, are, number 10 is a non-cyborg General Grievous. He's got a weird-looking, almost like a orc-looking type face from Lord of the Rings. So that's kind of interesting. But honestly, the whole interesting thing about General Grievous is that he is a cyborg. So, I don't know, taking that aspect away kind of just makes him a guy with a bunch of arms. So, Slave Chewbacca, I don't like this one. I don't like this one.
I don't remember that one.
It's Chewie, but he has chains around, like a collar, like a dog collar around his neck.
Remember that. Yeah.
And he's got like a big scar slashed down his face. So they're saying Slave Chewbacca or Evil Chewbacca. I don't know if I like that one. I like the idea of Chewie being free. Maybe it's my issue with slavery. I don't know. Let's see.
Your issue, not humanity's issue.
Not humanity's issues in general with slavery. Yeah, that's very true. I personally don't like slavery.
I disagree with slavery. I think it was a bad call. Well, that's unique. I've never heard of anyone who would agree with that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You know, it's just a good business decision. Oh my god. So number 8 is redeemed Anakin Skywalker. Just no helmet again. This one's really cool. He's still got the breathing apparatus, but it's just underneath, his face, so it's not covering anything. No black. He's wearing blue and white robes. Pretty cool. Honestly, the picture looks a lot like what Snoke would look like.
I was gonna say, some of the pictures of the opposite side, like there's a light side Dooku, and he looks really similar to Qui-Gon Jinn. Or there's a dark side. Damn, which one? I don't remember now. But a lot of the characters opposites look like other Jedi. Like light side Anakin kind of looks like Obi-Wan, or light side Dooku looks like Qui-Gon. That was pretty cool.
Jedi Maul looks pretty cool. Just lighter side robes, and then instead of the and now I don't really see like stuff like this. Like you said, this is only stuff they could do in a very specific type of video game. Because Darth Maul,
it would have to be like a Force Unleashed DLC or something like that. Like it's not something you could do in Battlefront.
Yeah, because Darth Maul's face has like the white within the red instead of the black, but the thing is that that's not paint. That's his skin. You can't really change the color of his actual skin.
That's his species.
Yeah, that's just his species. He's not that way because he's painted. So things like you said, things like that, like you couldn't really do because it's not. It would be a very, very weird specific game, but. A lot of these are interesting. I'm still going through some of them just to see which ones are... Oh, so Dark Luke. That one's interesting. He's got a ponytail in one, so apparently being dark makes you have like a ridiculously long ponytail.
Yeah, Dark Obi-Wan was cool too for that reason.
Yeah. In their portrayal of Luke, the tragic events of his family's past have pushed him over the edge. See, that's not Luke. So there's no point of even reading this, because now I could see, like, that's, like, because I wouldn't say, like, before The Last Jedi came out, we were having, like, this discussion of whether Luke turned to the dark side or not. And that's not the case with The Last Jedi. Like, Luke is a grouch, and he's a bummer, but he's not on the dark side, you know? So, I could never see Luke turning, like, fully, like, making a complete turn. Like, oh, all these events have, you know, because that's just not Luke's character. Like, he's an optimist. Like, he sees kind of like the bright side. At least that younger Luke was like that. Maybe this old head Luke, he might be a little bit more apt. But like I said, even now as he's depressed and all this other stuff, he's still not on the dark side. He completely cut himself off to the Force. Like, he doesn't even want to deal with the Force anymore. He's like, I don't even want to be a part of it. So, yeah. Then we have Sith Lord Luke, and it's basically exactly like Vader, but without the helmet. He looks just like Vader, just no helmet. But yeah, guys, if you have a chance to go and check these pics out, they're actually really, really cool, and the ideas behind them, though very, very far-fetched and kind of rewrite the entire idea and story of Star Wars, are still very cool. Darth Mace is an awesome... Oh, man, Darth Mace looks really cool. But yeah, Darth Mace, that would have been interesting, you know, if he, like, actually survived that fall, which I know Samuel L. Jackson kind of wishes did happen. But, yeah, exactly. He wants to come back to Star Wars, but if he does, it'll probably be in something like, you know, the movies we're about to see, like, you know, the little side movies. Wow, Jedi Dooku looks exactly like Qui-Gon Jinn.
I told you.
I finally got to the picture, though. I'm like, oh my god. It's just like, it barely looks even like there's a difference. Like, it looks exactly, he looks exactly the same.
Some of the fight scenes are cool, too. The
Jedi Dooku is basically, Jedi Dooku is basically, what's his name from Lord of the Rings? It's the same thing. If he would have just put on, like, a gray robe, or a tan robe instead of the white robe. What the heck is that character's name? No, not Gandalf, the guy who, the evil wizard. The guy who's played by the same character. Yeah, it's the same character. Like, it's the same guy who plays him. I'm like, that's basically it. If you were to just put him in tan robes instead of the white robes, that's it. That's light side Dooku. But, alright, guys, next week, hopefully we will be here. I'm going to be on vacation in Disney very, very soon. So I don't think that's next week. I think it's the following week. So I'm not going to be bringing my PS4 or anything with me because it's a big family trip, and I'm actually, like, going to try to escape for the week and, you know, try to relax a bit. So, yeah, you guys will be here with Adam and Jared. Hopefully Jared. We never know. Jared's, like, all over
Jared's in Texas. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, so unfortunately, like I said, I want my PS4 with me, but I will be bringing back some goodies, so that's awesome. So I'm going to try to find some Star Wars stuff while I'm down there. I bought a little tiny budget with me to try to pick some stuff up for the channel. Not just for this channel, but for Good Morning Nerds. If you guys have been able to check that out, thank you so much. We got like 1,000-something views the other morning. So yeah, things are going really well for Cube Gamers right now. And I really appreciate all the people coming in and checking us out, from Talking Sith and Good Morning Nerds and Play Cube, the show that they do out in England. And it's really nice that we're starting to grow finally after a couple years of hard work. So we appreciate it. And I am joined every week by Adam. Yo. And appreciate you talking with me again. This week was a lot less confrontational than last week. So that's good. We got to take it, because Jared's not here to spark. Yeah, exactly. He's not here to spark the fire. But yeah, guys, thank you again for joining us. You can find us at Talking Sith on all the social media stuff, and we will see you. I got your back.
Later.